this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from beautiful Florida. And today our question comes to us from Matthias Sandreiser. And Matthias has this question: what motivated me to start making videos? And I have to say that I think this is the first time anyone has asked that particular question. And I want to answer it by first pointing out that I think there are really two questions that I should address. The first is what motivated me to start working with video in general, and the second is what started me making vlogs, which I've been doing for about 8 years now, initially on a daily basis. And to answer the first question, I've always been fascinated by video. I can remember being fascinated by it as a very small child. I remember working with my mother to write little screenplays before I actually knew how to read and write myself, and they included things like camera angles and lighting and so forth, although I doubt that I really understood much about it, but I definitely remember doing it. And I'm sure that part of that was my mother explaining these things to me, because she, as she later pointed out to me, believed in using every occasion, every question, every curiosity as a teaching moment. And so I got my interest in video very early. Later I would write plays that were meant for live production, which also were very childish efforts because I was a child. But it was a part of my fairly early life. I became interested in visual art very early as well. My father had been trained as a commercial artist, and he started me drawing around the age of 3. And one of the things I loved to do, although I didn't think of it in quite those terms at the time, was to draw serial illustrations of stories, which basically were like storyboards that you might use for filming. Or in a manner of speaking, like extremely rudimentary animation. And I would draw the characters in scene after scene going through their story. So this has been a theme from my childhood on. I took part in my first animated film when I was around 12. It was a school project, and it was done in the old stop motion technique, which of course you still see, but not so much now in the age of computers. And I loved making that animated film, but the kind of equipment that you needed to do that then was not nearly so readily available as it is now, so I didn't revisit animation for many years. When I got out of college, I found I had an interest in making videos, and during the 80s I was involved in a project that, had it come to completion, would have made a movie from the short stories of Donna Lyon-Rose, who was a well-known pagan poet of the time and also the editor of Seasonal Silver magazine out of Georgia. And we had gotten to the point that we were actually casting parts and scouting locations before I was involved in an accident in which I was severely injured, and so it came to nothing. Although there are still a few pieces of film from when we were trying to start that. Later, we talked about some other possible film projects, but nothing really happened film-wise until we were in Hoopeston. And we started Magic TV originally as an independent project. It later became a YouTube channel. We were actually trying to develop the same technology that eventually launched YouTube, but they obviously were better funded and beat us to it. But our earliest videos that you'll find here on Magic TV actually were out a year or two earlier on our own platform. And that includes things like the interactive grimoire, for example. And we were basically filming them in our headquarters in one of the back rooms, which we had rigged up as a filming studio. And this basically was drawing on all of that interest I'd always had in video and my belief that people really wanted video. And I still think that's basically true, but I don't know that we're really quite there yet in the pagan community or the magical community. Video is starting to find more acceptance, but people still seem to prefer writing. But I think in the long run, video is going to have a longer shelf life because it has a greater immediacy and a greater ability to connect to the person in many ways. And also it serves as a kind of time capsule of the period and of the events that were happening. Now, how did I get started making the vlogs? That happened when we moved our headquarters to Salem. And initially it was intended basically to be a promotion And the idea was that I would talk about my life on the premise that people wanted to know about my life. Except I'm not very good at that, and besides, my life was basically work. One project after another, and I didn't really think it would be very interesting to people, so I started taking questions. And I found that an easier format to work with. And I feel that in having taken that direction, the vlogs became a teaching tool and also an outreach tool, which I think is very valuable. I've been doing vlogs for about 8 years now, so there are hundreds of questions that we have addressed in the vlogs, and I'm hoping to put them into a more coherent catalog at some time in the future, which will be searchable, so if a person has a question, they can find where it's already been discussed, sometimes several times. But my reason for doing and continuing the vlogs is the same reason that we did Witch School, the same reason we've done so many things: accessibility, getting good information out to people. And my theory has always been, if you're not satisfied with the information that's out there, get better information out there. And that's what I've tried to do. So that would be my answer to the question. I hope you find it helpful. And until next time, may you blessed be. Pray for peace. Pray for love. Pray for stability. Pray for the nation where you live. Pray for the world. Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from witchschool.com. Are you looking for the best in pagan and magical education? With more than 12,000 pages, witchschool.com is like having your own personal library with individual learning assistants to help you study. And Witch School's Anyone, Anytime, Anywhere education system is available any place on Earth, anywhere you are and anytime you want it, as long as you have an internet connection. Witch School's lifetime memberships are a great value. They really do last a lifetime. They've been there for years and they'll be there for years to come. So get your membership today at witchschool.com.